with Colesville Nursery again to show you that it is time for bulb planting. We definitely had some warm days in October, which sometimes make bulbs a little confused and they'll sprout up a little early. So you always want to make sure that when you buy your bulbs, if you buy them a little early, that you wait and really hold out for consistent cold weather like what we're dealing with right now. It looks like we have definitely headed into a more fall consistent weather, so it is time to plant your bulbs. To plant bulbs, you only need a few materials. The things that make your life a lot easier is to have a nice bulb planter. Now we do sell augers that can be attached to drills. Those are great. Not everybody has a drill. You don't necessarily need one. You can buy a bulb planter. They come at all different price points. This is our nicest one. This is the DeWitt. I wanted to show it off today because of its edged blade here that I can sharpen. Cuts through mulch, soil like an old bed like this a lot better and easier than something not as good. And you see how that just goes right on out of the hole there. I also have my bulb tone here today. This is an Espoma product. It's a nice 353. And this is just great for flower and bulb tone. You're going to apply this as you plant your plants, and I'll show you how you do that today. And then we're going to do it again in the spring, right as we're worried about these things coming up. We want to make sure they have the nutrients they need. You don't need to fertilize this throughout January or December. Fertilizer is not really active when the temperatures are that cold. So you want to just fertilize when you're planting, let them stay, and then in the spring rejuvenate and put the nutrients back in the soil that way. I'm going to show you a little succession planting today. Things that will follow each other in blooms that can all be planted on top of each other basically in the same space. They'll take care of each other and they will give you a nice color show all at once. And if there is overlapping blooms, these colors go nicely together, so it works out well. These are all great cut flowers. I do have a fragrant variety in here, and they're all disease resistant or deer resistant. So we've got the Purple Elegance here. This is a nice tulip. Tulips can be a little tough as a lot of deer and critters like them, but if you pair them with something like daffodil, which is very toxic to animals, the smell of those toxins should keep them away from your tulips. Same thing with you pair it with an allium, you're really overlapping. This is going to be your early, mid, late bloom here. I'm going to start with the earliest blooms, the daffodils here. This is Narcissus Mount Hood. Mount Hood is a really special variety of daffodils as the blooms are very, very, very large. They have a nice early bloom time here. It looks like these are going to start in March and go until April. It says to plant them now. On the back of this packaging here is where I'm reading the information on how to plant my bulbs. We keep it pretty simple here with DeVruman. They make it so easy. They tell me how far to space them, how deep to plant them, how big they're actually going to get, and when I need to plant them and when they're actually going to bloom and all that. Right here is the simple visual there, which I'm going to show you today, that it really is that simple with bulbs. You do not need to put a whole lot of effort into it. So we're just going to pop this open. We've got our bulbs here. The size of the bulb can sometimes be indicative of what you're going to get in terms of the size of the flower. So if you're ever dealing with one of those mixes that we're selling with crocuses and narcissus, you know, it's a great example of how crocus is going to be much smaller. It's a smaller plant, smaller flower, therefore smaller bulb. And your narcissus is going to be the larger ones in the package. So I've just made my hole for this one, and for the Mount Hoods, it's telling me that I need this depth to be about 8 inches deep. We're not quite there, so I'm going to go a little bit further here with my bulb planter. You'll see how this works out so nicely, just getting that dirt out of that hole for you without doing any extra work. All I did was twist with a little bit of pressure, and it popped out that soil for me. Soil is a little loose and dry today, so it's not staying compact inside of the bulb planter, but typically it will. Just take the bulb, set it in there, put a little bit of dirt on top before you completely cover it. We're going to use our bulb tone here. And you're really just going to use a little bit. And then you can cover up that hole there. And there's our narcissus. Now to get a nice layered effect, I'm going to then do the tulip. He's next. We have a runner. And once again, I've got all the information here on the back of the package for my Purple Elegance tulips. This is telling me to plant them 4 inches apart from other plants, and my narcissus here is telling me 6 inches. So I'm going to go about 5 inches between these two, so that way I'm safe. You know, I've got enough room for my tulip, enough room for my narcissus. They're both happy, but they'll be nice and close together for a design. And it looks like this only has to be planted about 6 inches deep, so not as quite as deep as my narcissus. Now, something you can do if you lose track of where your bulbs are as you're planting is take a nice little piece of mulch or a toothpick and kind of show where you just planted that plant so you're not going exactly right on top of it. You don't want your bulbs to touch too much under the ground. That can often cause rot and just damage to the bulb overall. So we're gonna go real close to that old hole there. I guesstimated about 5 inches. You really don't need to have a ruler out there measuring this stuff. This bulb planter is about 6 inches, so I'm just going to go about the depth of the bulb planter. We had a little bit denser soil here, so I was able to hold my planter. Just going to knock that out. Knock that out here. And then we're going to take one of these nice tulip bulbs, a little bit smaller than my narcissus, suggesting to me that he is going to have a slightly smaller bloom. Still a wonderful cut flower. And we're going to go ahead and cradle him right there. Do a little bit of cover up. We're going to get our bulb tone. A small sprinkle on top there. Cover it back up with some soil. And there's our tulip. Now for our late season, so the tulip is going to be following after the March-April bloom of our Mount Hoods. We're then going to have the tulip that I just planted. He's going to be in April-May. So now we've got almost all spring covered, heading into early summer, when we've got the classic allium, another critter-resisted bulb. Really good to mix with your tulips to keep them safe and happy. So we're going to once again pop this open. We're going to read the back instructions. It's telling me to plant it about 6 inches deep and about 8 inches away from the other guys. So these bulbs need just a little bit more space. So I am going to guesstimate about 8 inches just to give him the room that he needs. And I'm going to layer him in the back. I think it'd be kind of fun to have a taller guy in the back in case one of these comes up early. Keeping heights in mind when you're trying to create a design of any kind really helps. Just layering from tallest to shortest is the easiest way to have a nice flow in your design without overthinking it too much. So once again, we're going to take our bulb planter. I'm going back here a little bit from my last marking of my narcissus bulb here. I'm going to dig my hole. This one only needs to be about 6 inches deep, so I'm going to go about the depth of my bulb planter once more. Pull out the soil there. Shove my bulb in there. Do a little bit of bulb tone. And we're done. And that's going to be how you create a garden. Now I have a few more bulbs to plant here, and I am going to go ahead and add those in here and then keep pictures going for them over the winter and then the early spring to show you guys exactly how these things fare. I'm just going to fill in this whole space right here. 3 bags of this variety. The allium was $7.50 retail for 5 bulbs of that. They're going to be nice and big, purple sensation allium. Then I've got the tulip purple elegance. That is $8.99 for 8 bulbs in a bag. And then some narcissus Mount Hood, which is going to be 5 bulbs to a bag. So in total here, I've got 18 bulbs that are going to fill in this space really nicely without me having to do much work at all. And that's just me referencing the back of these packages, going with some colors that go nicely together and keeping in mind what I'm going for in terms of bloom time, height, and spacing. And that's how easy bulbs are. After this, you just kind of forget about them, let weather take care of them. If we go a couple of weeks without rain, feel free to sprinkle some water on them. They are susceptible to rot at this stage as they're pretty much dormant. So you're going to want to not worry about watering them too much. You just don't want them to be super dry. So just let the weather take care of them for the most part. And if we have dry weather for a long spell, feel free to sprinkle some water over top, and you'll really be in a nice place for a bright spring color show.